Now, at the start of 2022, the crypto cynics were gnashing their teeth, upset that they possibly had missed their chance to be early crypto adopters and movers, thereby missing thousands of dollars of gains. A single Bitcoin was worth around $48,000. By the end of January, that chapter had closed. Bitcoin's price had fallen to around $33,000, and at the moment, it's worth around $16,000. And most other cryptocurrencies, I beg your pardon, suffered the same fate. Now, 2022 is now being described as the year that broke Bitcoin. However, it wasn't the only main events that happened in the digital money metaverse this year, but it wasn't also all doom and gloom. Despite challenging macro conditions, crypto adoption growth remained strong in 2022, and as of November, the number of crypto owners crossed the 400 million milestone, reaching 402 million. During the year, the monthly average adoption growth rate was 2.9%. Ola Atose, founder and CEO of KoinKoin Exchange, joins me now to take us through crypto's year. Ola, welcome again to Business Edge. Thank you for joining me. Happy holidays, compliments of the season to you and yours as well.
Thank you for having me, Tolu. It's a pleasure to be with you.
So throughout this year, we've looked at the year that crypto has had, the highs and the lows. And let's start with the numbers. We may all tend to focus on how high Bitcoin went, but Bitcoin was not the only crypto that had a good year and a very, very bad year. So several cryptos dropped a significant share of their value this year. So take us through sort of the winners and the losers in the crypto space for 2022. Let's start from there.
Right. Yeah. So I think when we look at crypto, everybody wants to look at the price. Of course, everybody sees the price as a view as to whether crypto itself is doing well or not. My view is slightly different. I would say we shouldn't look at the price of Bitcoin, as you mentioned, is currently around 16,000. We should look at the adoption. And we should also further look at the use cases, not just in Nigeria, of course, but across the continent where we're seeing adoption of, the Bitcoin Lightning Network, Bitcoin itself as a means of, use for payments. And of course, with each passing, day, we're in a situation where we're constantly getting more and more, companies, both institutional, private companies who are adopting Bitcoin or certainly cryptocurrencies, in one way or the other. So my view is 2022, of course, from an investor perspective, has been a difficult year. We did see that drastic drop from highs of 48,000 down to where we are now at 16,000. But the bottom line is, it's not just the price; it's what it offers companies such as ours and what we're able to do for corporates, for individuals, for SMEs. And again, from our perspective, regardless of where Bitcoin is, we've seen, an increase in, in adoption, of Bitcoin specifically. So I think, yes, 2022 from an investor perspective has been very difficult. I think a lot of actually people who are invested in Bitcoin, have a lot to be concerned about, especially those who bought into Bitcoin at that very late stage. But having said that, it's not just been about, cryptocurrency itself and some of the pitfalls we've seen. It's been largely about the Fed, of course, they're tightening. It's been about inflation, and the will to sort of invest in almost anything is simply not there. So we have seen falls across the board, not just in cryptocurrency. I mean, obviously, that said, we have seen, some complex issues with the likes of FTX. And I'll have to state that, we are still in, if you want to call it, in the infancy of, of this asset class. There's still a lot going on. We see a lot of, entities around the world, central banks and the likes, who are now willing to come to the table and regulate cryptocurrency to sort of, control what goes on and to sort of ensure that people, have a good understanding of what they're, getting involved in. And like I've often said, I certainly welcome, some sort of regulation. But that said, Bitcoin in itself being a decentralized, tool, the very nature of Bitcoin itself, if it runs properly, will be self-regulating, right? All transactions are transparent. There's absolutely no reason why, Bitcoin can't be self-regulating. But then that, I think we're still maybe a couple of years away from that. Bitcoin being self-regulated will solve so many problems, and I think that's something that we can look forward to, over the next 48 months.
So a number of things you've said. You've talked about Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies as an asset class being in the infancy. I'm going to take you up on that before we wrap up. But let's go back to something you mentioned, of course, which is around the issue around central banks. Now, early in 2022, we saw central banks around the world begin to raise interest rates in order to slow inflation and, of course, decrease the rate of economic expansion. And it's been like that for most of the year. It's been like that across the world. And we can see those numbers. But in terms of investor appetite for those in the cryptocurrency space, how has that impacted them? Those decisions around the interest rate hikes, the inflation we as individual retail investors felt, as well as, the rising cost of living, which meant there was just not that extra money possibly for many people to then invest into the cryptocurrency space. So what was the long-term, or I guess we'll say the medium-term impact throughout the year?
Yeah, so you hit the nail on the head. There is no, right? The sort of living crisis, cost of living crisis in and of itself. And not just that, the fact that the Fed's been raising rates, all investment has basically gone into the US dollar. And let's just be frank, it is what it is, right? We saw, 3 rate hikes at 0.75, and we recently saw, I think the last one was at 0.5, right? So the market has had to sort of digest all that. And in digesting that, things like Bitcoin, and a number of other, coins, obviously Bitcoin being the main one, have all lost value. And I think a lot of that behavior, funny enough, is normal. Yes, it's been a lot more drastic for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and obviously the other major coins. But that said, with the Fed raising rates and, tightening happening across the world, there simply isn't enough, there aren't enough funds left for people to look at investment grade crypto. Again, to be very clear, this doesn't affect those who have chosen to use crypto as a bridge, to access, other currencies a lot quicker than they currently do. So there are a lot of companies across Nigeria and across Africa who sort of want to, do business together. And, crypto in and of itself and digital assets have provided a means for them to sort of move funds across the continent. Now that's still happening, regardless of what, Bitcoin is priced at. So we need to sort of look at it from that perspective as well and see that whilst the adoption does increase and we're seeing how we're able to solve several problems, in that crypto space, in the sort of corporate space, and in business generally with crypto, we still see that as it's sort of the more adoption we see, the more interest we're seeing in digital assets and crypto itself, and including Bitcoin. So I think the opportunities are simply there, and adoption of stable coins, adoption of Bitcoin itself, I think should really be the focus going forward, and not necessarily the investment grade or sort of the value of holding Bitcoin, which at some point will turn around anyway, right? You can only go down for so long. At some point, we expect there to be some modest recovery in the price of Bitcoin. I don't know when that's going to happen, but it will happen at some point.
So looking at some of the situations that the cryptocurrency space has found itself this year, there have been collapses and scandals. And some say that the crypto industry has managed to recreate the same risk of the traditional banking system, in particular, where institutions that were responsible for holding customers' assets will simultaneously lending funds, lending to leverage, liquidity, and even having capital conflicts. I know that's part of some of the issues that came up with the FTX and a number of other of the scandals and collapses that have happened this year. But Ola, when it comes to the difference of what crypto is supposed to represent as opposed to the traditional financial system, when you look at that comparison, what do you make of it? Are we seeing crypto owners and managers ending up doing the same things that were issues for people in the traditional financial space? How does crypto work around that? How do we figure that out for the cryptocurrency space?
Sure. Yeah, so to answer that question, I'll just say what I've been saying for at least the past year. I have a traditional finance background. I understand the way corporate finance works, debt capital markets. I spent well over 13 years in sell-side investment banking. So I have some knowledge which gives me not just credence in the cryptocurrency space, but at least it gives me a view on corporate structure, how to handle money et cetera, et cetera. Now, one of the problems we have in the crypto space is everybody wants to be involved in crypto, but not everybody has that background. As a result, we've had what I would call hiccups in this space, where obviously younger persons who are perhaps not savvy enough in handling money have been involved in handling a lot of value, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's stablecoin, or whether it's the US dollar. And a lot of them just make mistakes. And these mistakes that they've made, highly unfortunate that they are mistakes which have cost the industry. So my view is, and it's something which I know the regulators are looking at, there has to be some sort of knowledge or training that CEOs and owners of cryptocurrency exchanges can either go through or have to be able to run a cryptocurrency exchange. It's simply not good enough to sort of make what I'd call schoolboy errors and put your company or companies in dire straits when it comes to how they're managed or how their funds are handled. And I think that's something that the industry, cryptocurrency industry, needs to look at. It's something we need to focus on how we solve that problem, how we change things, and how we make ourselves better. So I think that's certainly one point to mention. And another thing is, in traditional finance, there are several guardrails which have been put in place over decades, right? So all the sort of issues and errors we're seeing in the cryptocurrency space are because those guardrails either don't exist, or those of us who are bringing those guardrails along, we're only bringing them along because we know about those guardrails, right? There are a lot of young cryptocurrency exchange owners who do not understand those guardrails, who don't have experience as to why those guardrails are necessary. So a lot of the issues we're seeing, whether it's with security of cryptocurrency exchanges, whether it's with the lack of corporate structure or the loss of funds, a lot of that's simply down to a lack of knowledge. So my view is we need to find a way to solve that problem, and we need to look at ourselves as an industry and sort of start planning on how we fix all that. And that's really my my view. I think the future is bright. I think there are a number of projects right now which revolve around, the decentralization of things like Bitcoin and sort of presenting the transparency of it in and of itself so that people know there is no loss. There won't be any loss in the system, depending on how that system is managed, right? So there's a lot going on in that space. Likewise, for those of us who lean closely to the sort of, regulatory aspect, we are self-regulating. We apply all the norms that you would expect to have in a financial company, in our company. So we expect that, people sort of look at that and try to sort of, safeguard themselves from potential pitfalls, whether it's hacking, whether it's, again, as I mentioned, lack of corporate structure or what have you. So that's my view on that.
Okay. So you mentioned regulation earlier. You also mentioned infancy. We'll get to that. But let's get to the regulation aspect. And we saw that this year, governments really did continue to try to figure out what to do with cryptocurrencies and how to integrate them. And while Bitcoin was losing the bulk of its value in markets, we saw cryptocurrency technology was gaining a lot of popularity in Africa. The Central African Republic became the first country on the continent and the second in the world after El Salvador to designate Bitcoin as a legal tender. And of course, we know how things are booming on the Kenyan side of things, but we also see what's happening on the Nigerian side of things with the ban in place from the CBN. So it's been a variant in terms of how the continent itself has dealt with the cryptocurrencies. And we've seen central banks now also coming in with the central bank coin as well. So in terms of that, with the variation versus what's happening on the continent versus what's happening in the West, how do you explain all of that? Is it because we are looking for answers to financial inclusion, to easier financial transactions, and that's why you're seeing sort of a difference in how things are playing out with cryptocurrencies on the continent versus what's happening in the West?
Yeah, so I mean, as far as the West is concerned, they have robust payment systems. The payment systems they have, whether it's the euro, the dollar, GBP, there is a means for funds to move quite easily within, the West. And that's why they've been able to champion their economies a lot better than we have over the last 50 years. By we, I mean Africa, right? So in Africa, of course, it's very, very difficult. You would struggle to find you struggle to find any liquidity between naira, the Nigerian naira, and the Ghanaian cedis, or the Togolese CFA, right? And the truth of the matter is, in 2023, the continent having 48 different currencies, is absurd. It's absolutely ridiculous. It doesn't matter how you want to spin it. It doesn't make any sense. A lot of people across Africa simply want to do business, right? How do you do business if you're a country that has 8 million and the country next door has 200 million and you've got no access to that market? I mean, what is the basis for that? Now, I know that, there have been some programs, with the AFC, FTA, and, the PAP system and a number of other systems, including the central bank digital currencies in Africa, who sort of want to be providing that liquidity across central banks in Africa. I know that's certainly something they're thinking about. However, whilst they're thinking about it, we already have a solution, right? We use, some companies, not just our company, we do a lot of over-the-counter trading with companies across Africa who simply want to move funds between one African country and another. We do that manually for a lot of our clients. But there are other companies, such as ours, who have automated the process by which remittances and payments can be made within the continent, right? Using, crypto, as a backbone or as a bridge, if you like. So the bottom line is, in Africa, we are constantly innovating. We're bringing solutions to the table, and we're doing our best to work with the bodies in charge, whether it's the governments, the regulators, or the central banks, or the exchange commissions. We're doing our best to work with them so that we can actually provide our solutions, in a very in a supported manner, right? Because some of these solutions work, right, and it's aiding business across the continent. So, in comparison to the West, in Africa, whether we like it or not, digital assets are a holy grail, and the whole sort of sleeping giant idea of Africa is now in the rearview mirror, because now we can do things on the continent which we couldn't do before, simply because we have digital assets. And I think this is only the beginning. And of course, I think compared to the West, this gives Africa the edge, not just to continue innovating, but to continue providing these solutions which solve everyday issues for everyday Africans.
Okay, so Ola, I have to be possibly trying to bust a bubble here, but we spoke about the potential of this crypto winter that we saw, which came from as early as October. And it became very clear that, of course, the crypto winter might end up being more than just a seasonal thing. It might become a year-long affair. And we saw tons of institutional investors who actually pulled out the seasonal dip, and that then became known as a world-ending or crypto-verse-ending event. That particular dip and that particular winter, are you seeing spring happening now? Why did these institutional investors even pull out? There was a lot of loss. It brought the markets crashing down.
Yes, you're correct. The cryptocurrency market, if you look at the prices of crypto, is on its knees. And my focus, again, isn't on the price of Bitcoin. It's on how we solve solutions with blockchain tech and, with stablecoin and Bitcoin itself. And of course, we've shown that we're able to do that. And because we're able to do that, the adoption will continue. It will be slow, but it will continue. People, different companies, large corporates, SMEs, individuals come to us specifically because we're able to, get their funds moved from the likes of, for example, Cameroon to Ghana, right? So people come to us for that. We're able to do it on the same day, and we're able to do it at a much cheaper rate than their banks do it for them, right? So these are the sort of realizations that we're starting to see. And that's where, we see positivity as far as Africa is concerned, in the crypto space. That said, I will acknowledge what you've said with regards to the fact that, yes, it is a sort of crypto winter based on the price of Bitcoin. Doesn't look good. There have been some pullouts of monies, largely on the back of, what happened with FTX. Yeah. And the institutional investors that have pulled out on the basis that they don't feel that they're going to get enough returns. Now, a lot of that isn't just based on what's happened in the crypto space. A lot of that's based on what the central banks are doing with regards to raising rates. But whilst this is happening, you'll notice that there are still some investors, both institutional and sort of retail investors, who are investing at Bitcoin at this level, because as far as they're concerned, Bitcoin went to 69 at one point. It's now at 16. It's cheap, right? So it's a double-edged sword at the moment. There are still some investors at the table, not as many as we once had. But what I would say to most investors is just take a slightly different look. You don't necessarily have to invest in crypto itself, You can invest in crypto companies like KoinKoin, for example, and put your funds into a company that is seeing a lot of growth and constant recruitment of clients who are simply looking for solutions, to help them with how they move money, or to assist them with how they do business, within the continent. So that's another way to look at things.
To touch the waters of the cryptocurrency space. Okay, Ola, before I let you go, I have to bring this in. I've asked you before, but there are those who are not as optimistic as you are. Some analysts, notably Peter Schiff, are saying that this is the beginning of the end of crypto as we know it. And the question will probably be, is it too early to call, or really do you think that crypto will weather this storm? Because when you look at the numbers are good. By November 2022, there were around 402 million cryptocurrency owners. So what does that tell us about the future of cryptocurrencies into 2023 and whether the end is near or not? Very quickly as we wrap things up.
Well, I mean, it's not really an end. It's going to be an evolution. So we see the current form of sort of retail investors and exchanges that perhaps won't be the forefront anymore. The forefront will be what solutions are you actually bringing? And we see a lot of investment going into spaces whereby, folks are able to, use crypto and Bitcoin to solve their everyday issues, which is what I mentioned earlier, which is what we're doing. So we will see some sort of evolution in the space, but it's not going anywhere. Pandora's box is open. Crypto digital assets in themselves, they perform a much better function than fiat ever could. Everybody knows it. The IMF knows it. We know it. The central banks know it, which is why they went to create their own central bank digital currencies. The bottom line is digital assets are the future. We have no choice but to keep on innovating and keep on providing solutions. And that's what we intend to do. I'm presently in Antigua, where we have a registered entity. And there are a lot of, businesses here, SMEs, who actually accept Bitcoin Cash as a form of payment. So we are doing our best to be at the forefront of that exercise here in the Caribbean. And, I know I'm not the only one. There are others who certainly want to be a part of this and want to, see things happen in this space. So I think we just need to keep on chipping away at solving those problems. And yes, the space will evolve. Yes, we may even see a lower price than Bitcoin, but it won't stop the constant innovation and the constant solving of problems, which again is making lives better, across the African continent and certainly here in the Caribbean.
Thank you so much, Ola. All I can see behind you are the blue skies and the blue sea. So I've heard everything you said about where crypto is heading, but I'm also trying to think about where you are as well. Thank you so much for joining me. What looks like you're on vacation. We probably interrupted that, but also compliments to the season once again.
It's a working vacation.
We'll take that as it is. Thank you so much, Ola Atose. And of course, when it comes to the cryptocurrency space, it's been a heck of a year. In March this year, Ronin was hacked and about $625 million was stolen, leading many to question the safety of crypto assets. There was also the controversies that rocked BlockFi, Celsius Network, and Voyager Digital as well. We can't also forget what happened to Terra USD and Luna, or rather known as Luna, which collapsed in March of 2022. And then the world's third largest exchange, FTX, with its leader, Sam Bankman-Fried, also facing charges right now in the United States. That's leading many to question the safety and the potential and the possible lifespan of cryptocurrencies. But 2023 could tell a different tale. Now, 402 million cryptocurrency users exist across the world, and that definitely is a number no one should be sneezing at. And we saw a number of gains in 2022. Unfortunately, some of that profit also has been lost. There was realized profits of $105 billion in 2022, most of which came from long-term holders of Bitcoin for over 18 months. And Bitcoin has been the dominant cryptocurrency, but it's not the only one. And we'll wrap this up with the top 5 cryptocurrencies of 2022, how they have all performed in their time. Bitcoin reached an all-time high of $57,000 and is now currently trading between 16 and 18,000. We had Ethereum, which reached a high of 4,300 and now trading at just around $1,200. Tether was there as well, $1.22, and is now trading at 42 cents. US dollar coin reached $1.19 and is now around just $1. And Binance reached a high of 623 and is currently trading around 245. The highs of the beginning of the year and now the lows at the end. What will 2023 hold? That's a conversation for another day. That's it on this edition of Business Edge. You can follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. Also head to our website to keep up to date with all the latest news from here on the continent. And you can download our mobile app as well on App Store and Play Store to do that too. So next time, I'm Tolulope Adeleru Balogun.